I'm not a furry, but I think I get where they're coming from. I think it should be obvious by this shot that I think Spice&Wolf is pretty okay. It's kinda neat. You know, casual fan over here. With all seriousness, I like this series and have over the past couple years been collecting the various releases of Spice&Wolf, covering a lot of different mediums. More than you think. More than I thought there was at first, that's for sure. And I wanted to make a video on Spice&Wolf for a while, and with the release of the new anime, Spice&Wolf Merchant Meets the Wise Wolf, this seems like a pretty good time to actually get one out the door. As of writing this, only the first episode of the new series is out, and I was able to watch it. A lot of people wanted this new anime to just be a season 3 of the anime from over a decade ago, and while I get that sentiment, it'd be really stupid for this to just be a continuation. You just couldn't do that. The first anime skipped over volume 4, and if this were to just be a continuation, could you imagine the charts online of how to watch Spice&Wolf? That would be watch season 1, then half of 2, then start season 3, then finish season 2, then continue season 3? That'd be a bitch. No one wants that. People just want to be told start at episode 1. And fortunately, this new series looks to be going in that direction. Within the first minute, there looks to be a promise of an actual adaptation of the light novels. But right now, we can only wait and see how that pans out. So this video is not going to be about the new anime, nor will I cover any of the sequel series at all. I'm going to pretty much talk exclusively about Spice&Wolf from its release in 2006 up until this new series. But there is an issue with the series and making a video for YouTube. Here's the thing about Spice&Wolf that is inherent to the work that will ultimately affect this video. Spice&Wolf heavily sexualizes Holo. That's just how it be, that's just how it do. Pretty fucking often Holo will be shown naked, and sometimes even full on tits. Nudity and sexualization is just a part of Spice&Wolf, and I'm going to have to censor it all on YouTube. You gotta play it safe, even a crumb of ass cheek gotta be hidden. But if you sub to my Patreon for only $1 a month, just like these cool people, link on screen and in the description by the way, you'll get an uncensored cut of this video in addition to other benefits. All tits and ass shown for full display. I started reading the Spice&Wolf light novels back in August 2022. Yeah, this video is 2 years in the fucking making. I liked the Spice&Wolf anime and I had wanted to actually read through the light novels to finally get the full story. It helped that the books were all getting officially licensed, localized, and now finally accessible for me to read. I also had the idea of doing a video similar to the video on the Monogatari light novels I previously did, this time with Spice&Wolf. So there were multiple motivating factors to get me started on the reading. Oh, how naive I fucking was back then with the scope of this video. So I started getting the books over the next while. The light novels are published by Yen Press, each with lovely cover illustrations done by the light novels illustrator Ju Ayakura. The spines all sport the same design, Spice&Wolf logo, art of Holo, and the volume number and Isuna Hasakura's name on a solid block of color, each volume having a different color theme. A simple but effective spine. I didn't actually read all of Spice&Wolf on printed paper. I'm a hack! I'm a fraud! I'm a fake fan! Who gives a fuck how you read it? I spent most of my time reading it as a PDF on my computer screen. Why this way? Because I didn't have all the volumes during my time reading it, and I was reading through the series at a rate faster than I got them. And I read through what I would consider the core story in about 2 weeks. So there's a lot of volumes of Spice&Wolf. I've got 24 of these fuckers in front of me. That's a lot of words on a lot of pages, man. But if you just care about the core story, then all you really need are 14 of these. This core story ends at volume 17. There's continued adventures after that, but I'm not really going to focus on that today. Of these 17 books, volumes 7, 11, and 13 are called side colors, which is just some side stories. If you just want to critical path your books, then the remaining 14 is what I'm going to call the core story. So you open it up, or scroll down in my case, and every volume of Spice&Wolf has a couple of full-color illustrations or key moments and characters present in the volume. Ju Ayakura's illustrations, to me, are a great addition to these books. Not only is it good art, and you'd have to be a contrarian fuck and philistine not to appreciate it, but it also gives mental direction to how to visualize things as you read. As you read through, you will of course be given descriptions of characters or their actions. The important details, you know? It gives you a majority of the mental picture, and this is where I feel a lot of people's enjoyment of books tend to deviate. A lot of people might love reading these descriptions and painting their own picture in their head of what everything looks like. But to me, I primarily get the broad strokes, but it comes off as a bit blurry. But being able to see what characters are meant to look like really helps me get immersed more in what I'm reading. It's that extra push that I need to create that full mental image. If I can see these small glimpses into the world through the art of Ju Ayakura, then that helps me better extrapolate those smaller details for the characters, locations, and other things that don't have that privilege of illustration. It's not just these full color illustrations as well, you'll also get some black and white scattered throughout the pages. Also pretty nice to have. Outside of that, all there is left is Isuna Hasakura's prose. The best way to describe this is that this is a fucking light novel, full and through. Did I just state the obvious? Yeah, I do sound a bit like a dumbass saying a light novel's a light novel. No shit it is. But so is Monogatari. That's a light novel and is known for its pages of wordplay. What I mean is that Spice&Wolf is a novel that is completely light reading. The prose is detailed and evocative enough to spark your imagination, yet kept simple and very accessible. There's not a whole lot of complex vocabulary or concepts or much flowery language whatsoever. The language that is used is kept on the blunter side with easy to understand metaphors and comparisons. And even the economic concepts that are talked about are kept to its basics and explained in simple terms as best as it can without going into full economics 101 mode. These books are extremely accessible. They're very easy to pick up and blast through in an afternoon. This is why I was able to get through these books in about 2 weeks. With the exception of the side colors books, these books all follow a similar structure and format. The beginning of the volume starts with a quick recap. It reminds you that Lawrence is Lawrence, Holo be Holo, where they just came from and the shit they just finished dealing with, as well as the next town that they're currently traveling to. They reach it, encounter some characters, and some strange business shit is going down that Lawrence and Holo find themselves in the middle of, either trying to claw their way out of it or trying to find a way to profit off of it. At its core, this is pretty much what each of the core books follow. This also helps in being a light as fuck novel. You can theoretically pick up any of these books at any point and just read it and go. I wouldn't recommend just picking a random starting point, as there are characters and events that do show back up and are referenced, but if you really wanted to, you could just pick up volume 4 and start reading it from there. And this structure also makes me advocate that you do not, nor should you ever, follow in my footsteps and just marathon a book series. Especially this one. Learn to take your time and enjoy shit instead of reading 2 books in a day and wholesale skipping paragraphs in the first chapter, because I don't need to be reminded of who Holo is. Just don't do this with anything, really. Pacing yourself is better for enjoying something, especially these books. Do I recommend reading this book series? Absolutely. Why the fuck not? It may be daunting to hear 24 books, at least as of writing this, or even 14, but it's honestly not that bad. They're pretty quick to read, not hard to read, and it's better than gooning the Holo for the 6th time that day. I can think of a lot of things worse than, I don't fucking know, taking at most an hour to read. Do I recommend buying these books? Fuck if I know, man. There's no right answer because that really comes down to if you have the cash, space, and love of Spice&Wolf, and that will vary from person to person. For most people, probably not, and I just say get PDFs and read that. But if you do want them, I'm sure you're curious how much it's going to run your pockets. Now, of course, this is going to vary as prices will fluctuate and shit can cost differently depending on where you are and when you're watching this, as well as what condition you buy. But I can tell you that these books drained me out of a $25 Barnes & Noble gift card during a buy 2 get 1 free promotion for the first 3 books, as well as $302.54 for the remaining 21 volumes before tax. $302? For real? Shit, can't even write that off on taxes since that was 2 years ago. What a bunch of bullshit. The Spice&Wolf light novels are most likely not what most people are familiar with when it comes to the series. At least for people outside of Japan, that is. I, much like how I think most people learned about Spice&Wolf, discovered Spice&Wolf through the 2008 and 2009 anime seasons. It makes sense why Spice&Wolf gained popularity looking back. Of course, there's the obvious, the characters are charming and their dynamics well written. Also, Holo got me barking and panting. I'm sure it did most others who watched this too. But more importantly, I think the timing of when this released played into why this anime is still talked about today. Bro, the winter 2008 season was looking thinner than Holo, and that bitch already tiny. When you look back, there's not much that really stood the cultural test of time. There wasn't that much competition going for it, so I'm sure it was probably what was most talked about at that time. The romance aspects felt refreshing. Sure, there's romance in it, but it felt like it took a back seat to the rest going on. That being fucking business. Spice&Wolf did not beat you over the head with a will they, won't they. It didn't really focus on that. Even nowadays, a lot of romance doesn't feel like the way Spice&Wolf approached its romance. I ended up rewatching the anime for the making of this video, and having rewatched it after having read the light novels, I was pretty fucking surprised how closely adapted this show is to the books. Okay, there's the obvious and blatant switcheroo of Yare for Chloe, but even then they effectively are the same character. They function the same in the story, so it's not that different in the end. But yeah, it feels like a one-for-one adaptation of the novels. It's even paced the same way. The books got about 6 chapters to them on average, with each episode adapting a full chapter. 6 episodes for a volume. That's some great fucking pacing that is able to go through all the material of the novels without feeling rushed whatsoever. Season 1 gets you volumes 1 and 2 of the books, and the second season gets you volumes 3 and 5. Yeah, infamously, the second season skips over volume 4, which ended up biting them in the ass as characters from volume 4 show up later. And not gonna lie, I think I ended up liking season 2 more than season 1. For one thing, I liked the music way more in the season, and there was also a switch in what studio was making it too. The switch from Imagine the Brains base didn't affect animation quality a whole lot. If you didn't tell someone the animation studio changed, I don't think they'd even notice. But I do think that this change could have resulted in a season with more of those smaller details. The moments where Lawrence is trying to catch Holo's flying clothes are cute as hell, and the cutaway to Holo retching is hilarious. There were a lot more of these kinds of details in the season that really brought my opinion of it up on my rewatch. But yeah, it's the fucking anime. There's a high likelihood that of everything I talk about in this video, that this is the one thing you've actually engaged with. What more can I possibly say to something that you've probably already watched? Not only that, there's no shortage of discussion to this aspect of Spice&Wolf. Sure, it's great. It was my introduction to Spice&Wolf, and I like the anime. But I'd also rather spend the time on talking about other shit you might not be familiar with. But before moving on completely from the topic of the anime, I own 2 releases for it. Chances are, you'll probably recognize this one as the US Blu-ray release that contains both seasons. So why would I also own the Japanese DVD release of the first season? A real answer: poor financial decisions. This shit isn't even in English, so it's practically worthless. But the answer relevant to this video, it contains some cool shit with it. This set consists of 6 DVDs because anime companies want to squeeze all the fucking money out of the pockets of fans, so they stretch anime releases, and this is far from fucking unique to just Spice&Wolf, and each DVD also has different art on their covers. But just different pieces of paper slipped in a plastic case isn't what's interesting. Inside each of these DVDs have 2 inserts of interest. The first are these cards that have the same art on them that is found in the anime's ending. Each one comes with 2 cards, and they've got nothing on the other side of them. The other insert is a pamphlet that has concept art for the anime or some of Ju Ayakuda's art or other shit that I can't read. Each of the DVDs have their unique pamphlets as well. But I'll be real, if this was all this release had, I sure as hell wouldn't have bought these. Some cards and pamphlets aren't enough to get me to buy this shit. But there's even more to this release of Spice&Wolf. This is a special edition of the anime, one that comes with 6 fucking jigsaw puzzles of all things. 1 jigsaw per DVD. Each of these jigsaws are 300 pieces, 15 by 10¼ inches, and sporting art by Ju Ayakuda on each one. And the art on each puzzle is nice, that goes without saying. Who'd have known that Ju Ayakuda makes good fucking art? But that's about as much praise as I'm giving this shit. Each one of these come with its respective DVD for 5,500 yen each. And if you wanted the whole set, that'd be 33,000 yen total. For being a special edition item that was priced at 5,500 yen on release, you'd think that this shit wouldn't have ass build quality. The pieces just don't fit together great. In front of me, I have the first jigsaw in this set finished, and you can see that I can fucking stretch the puzzle. That's not good. You really shouldn't be able to do this. The pieces should fucking lock together here, but they don't. And this makes the actual puzzle putting together process straight ass to do for many reasons. The most egregious of these is that you can't move chunks easily. You just straight up can't even pick up 2 joined pieces without it falling apart. Fucking 2. It's a bitch to put together a section and to try to move and slot it in. And even if you do join 2 pieces together, it's entirely possible that it was a false fit. Like, look at this shit. This piece looks like it belongs there until you really examine it and there's a tiny ass gap and see that it doesn't. This happens more than you think. Anyway, I did put the second jigsaw together and I've got a picture proving that I did, but I tried to move it to make space so I can do the third jigsaw puzzle. I also wanted to lay the 2 jigsaws on top of each other, so that way I'd be able to compare the cuts and see if the 6 share the same cuts or if they're unique. But that plan went down the fucking drain. Let's just start simple. You can't pick this piece of shit up. In a quality puzzle, you'd be able to pick up sections or even the whole fucking thing when it's finished. But not this one. It will just disintegrate. So I tried lifting it from the bottom with paper and it fucking fought me and I couldn't get it under because it would get caught on the pieces. Final option, place something on top and try to flip it. Hey, guess what? Didn't work for shit. It completely fell apart. It was then and there that I decided to say fuck it and not even touch the rest of the puzzles. They just aren't worth the time to do. They're frustrating to deal with. Spice&Wolf manga started its serialization in September 2007. For a frame of reference, the manga began between the releases of books 5 and 6 of the light novel. The serialization had its story done by Isuna Hasekura with art from Kome Kato, and it ran for 10 years, concluding in 2017. When I first learned of the manga adaptation, I recognized the artist's name, Kome Kato, from somewhere. Didn't remember where, but I knew of him. And when I actually opened up volume 1 and started looking at the art, once again I thought, this is familiar from somewhere. Rather than rack my brain on it, I just looked up his name and realized where I knew him from. Kafun Shoujo, or Polite Girls Attack. For the uninitiated, Kafun Shoujo is porn. It's fucking porn full and through. I probably can't show a single panel of the 2 volumes there is, or a frame from the OVA there is of it on YouTube. But hey, that's what Patreon is for. You can watch this video uncensored, and let's just say, this next section is gonna be more censored than usual. But yeah, dude's got a catalog of cum books under his belt for your underbelt situation. Given both the artist's body of work and the parental advisory logo on the cover, yeah, this shit's got the most explicit and sexual content of any of the Spice&Wolf stuff going on. No, this isn't porn. I mean, it can be, but it don't got 2-page spreads of orgies or any spreading of legs either. What you do get is full-on nip and tit on full display. For once, there's no convenient censoring. Nah, bitch, we see that bitch's boobs in full color too! Here's the thing about this. This feels like a marketing gimmick. Wow, Holo's tits, finally on page in an official format, and not through diving Pixiv's R18 tab. But outside of Holo's introduction, the ending chapter, and like one more piece of bonus art, that's all you get. The full frontal is front-loaded. If you're familiar with Spice&Wolf, think about how many scenes there are of Holo in varying states of undress. There's a lot of them too. And yet in every other time where tits would be on the page, they go conveniently censored. Now, I'm not here saying, damn it, I want to see more of Holo's honkers. I mean, I do want to see them, but what I'm trying to get at is I'm just confused more than anything. The manga blows its load with her introduction and it sets up the expectation that this isn't going to shy away from nudity. And yet it does. What is the point of getting an artist like Kome Kato and showing nudity to begin with if you're just not going to commit? And that lack of commitment is what confuses me the most. I would have been fine if there was no nudity or if there was a lot more of it, but it doesn't commit to either, and I'm just bewildered. Oh well, it's not even that important really. And don't get me wrong, I'm not claiming that Kome Kato's only worth as an artist is drawing women experiencing the big O. He's a legit good artist. Doesn't change the fact that the way he draws, especially women, radiates this porn energy off of his work. Either that, or I'm corrupted and can't break the mental connection that is his art style and porn. The manga itself is as close as we currently have, as of writing this, to an adaptation of the novels. What we get here is a complete adaptation of the main story beats from volume 1 to 17 of the light novels, not including the side color books. What we don't get is a full-on, one-to-one, actually complete adaptation of the 14 core light novel books. Despite there being 16 volumes of the manga, which is more volumes than there are core light novels, and how a picture can shorthand a lot of words and information, it doesn't actually adapt all 14 books and will skip over a fuck ton. The first 16 chapters are dedicated to adapting the first light novel. Chapter 17 is some extra story given to Nora, and chapters 18 to 35 cover the second light novel. These first 35 chapters are actually legitimately good adaptations of the first 2 volumes and are accurate to the source material. Yada intact, no Chloe in sight, no shit like that anywhere to be seen. At this pace of let's say about 15 chapters per novel, which is a good amount of chapters to fully adapt one without really cutting much, you'd end up at about 210 chapters to cover the core books. As it turns out, the pacing is fucked. So if you wanted to evenly adapt the books in 100 chapters, that calls for 7 chapters per book. Doable! You'd be cutting shit, but you gotta do what you gotta do. But that's not the case, because 2 books alone cost the first 35 chapters, and now you got 65 chapters to adapt another 12 books. That's really starting to stretch it now. How do they manage to even do that? They don't. They straight up start skipping over whole ass books. So let's go over which chapters cover which books so you can see what I mean. The first 35 chapters, as mentioned, are the first 2 light novels. Chapters 36 to 43 is book 4, 44 to 46 is book 6, 47 to 66 is books 8 and 9, that being The Town of Strife, 67 to 74 is book 14, 75 to 98 are books 15 and 16, Coin of the Sun. The last 2 chapters are reserved for the epilogue. Now, you may have noticed that not including the side color books, the manga wholesale skips over books 3, 5, 10, and 12. Just 4 books getting at most a reference, with so much important shit getting glossed over. For reference, book 5, Eve's introduction, is just fucking cut, and our first meeting is moved to during the Town of Strife events. And we don't get actually any moments with Dion, Huskins, or Fran whatsoever. At least Dion and Fran get a panel, Huskins gets fuck all. Why you gotta do him dirty like that? Does the manga have problems? Yeah, the pacing is insane to me. Should you bother reading it? Yeah, why not? If you're not the book ready type and prefer manga, I don't blame you. I typically do too. And unless the new anime goes through the whole story and adapts all of it, this is currently the closest there is to a complete adaptation of Spice&Wolf. So fuck it. What's the point in gatekeeping and being a little shit like, oh, it's not the true experience, you're not a real fan, when that's just a load of bullshit? It's still the same story and character, so if manga is your preferred vehicle, then hop on it. Plus, tits. When it comes to merchandise, you best believe that there's metric assloads of it. I don't own all of it. Hell, I don't own much of it because I'm not interested in collecting shit like posters, mugs, stationery, or keychains. But I am interested in scale figures, of which I have 2 of Holo. The first one I got is from the Pop-Up Parade line of figures produced by the Good Smile Company. If you're unfamiliar with this line of figures, they're decent figures from $30 to $50 that cover a wide range of IPs and characters. They're budget figures, but hey, they're also pretty good for that price though. Like, just because it's affordable doesn't mean it's shit. Exhibit A, Holo. Including the base, this figure stands about 7¼ inches tall, or about 18½ centimeters. This is pretty standard for the Pop-Up Parade line. They do tend to be on the smaller side. But the figure itself is pretty nice looking. Its design is based off of the cover of the first light novel, as that's the same pose and outfit she sculpted in on the figure. The sculpting of which, especially when taking the price point of $38.99 US into account, is pretty fucking nice. There's really not any noticeable seams anywhere, so they're pretty well hidden, which makes the presentation overall much cleaner. And the figure has more detail than you think, as it goes for recreating different visual textures of the fabrics, as well as the wheat she's holding. And her tail is also fully present under her skirt. I will say, compared to the other figure I own, I'll get to that in a second, the tail does come off a bit thin. Given how proud Holo is of her tail, it isn't as poofy as it should be. And the base it comes on is just a generic hexagon. A lot of pop-up parades come on a base like this. I'm assuming to make it easier to display them, since you'd be able to stellate these if you had a bunch of figures to display. It does its job and nothing more. The other figure is the Wolf in the Scent of Fruit 7th scale figure, also produced by the Good Smile Company. This figure is listed on the Good Smile website for $237.99. Fuck that. Don't pay that much for it. I sure as shit didn't. I went to the Amazon listing for this figure and got it for $160. Hell, as of writing this, I'm seeing it went even lower at $148. Here's the thing you need to learn when collecting figures. Never settle for the first listing you see. Always search around on other websites for the best price. But the Scent of Fruit figure is immaculate. The way she is sculpted looks so accurate to Ju Ayakuta's illustrations that it looks like she was lifted straight off the drawing, especially in the face. This figure is based off of an illustration that can be found on the first page of the Spice&Wolf guidebook, and this figure feels one for one the exact same pose. It's a very dynamic one with her hair flying all over the place. The ends are a bit pointy actually, and a pose that really captures movement. And this specific pose is also why there is an included transparent pole to shove up her ass. No, I'm serious. This pole has a small platform at the top that you rest on her ass cheek to help with the stability of it. And it was a bitch to put up there. Okay, the base is very pretty. It's a unique base and it makes the figure stand out, but damn does it fight back. It was harder than you think to put the pole in its proper place because the grass that was popping off the base was blocking the slot and getting in the way, and I was terrified to force it in and break something. I got a decent collection of figures, but this is probably one of the nicer ones I own for sure. I'd recommend that if you're going to hot glue a Holo figure, then go with the Pop-Up Parade figure since it's on the cheaper end, while still being a decently quality figure. If you're going to ruin one, might as well ruin the one that's not going to run you a couple $100 like the Send a Fruit figure. Keep that beauty in pristine condition. But also, don't fucking hot glue figures like a goddamn degenerate. That'd ruin the fucking figure. And if you don't know what hot gluing is, don't worry about it, just don't look it up, you'd be happier as a person. It truly is some real degenerate hours out there. While browsing the Japanese Spice&Wolf website, there was a link that caught me off guard. Under the painting section, which isn't actually for paintings, it's for the art books, I got no fucking clue why it's labeled as that, but there's another link on that page with a URL being named Visual Novel. Visual Novel? How the hell has there been a Spice&Wolf visual novel that I didn't know about? I had done a ton of research on Spice&Wolf media, and not one mention of a visual novel anywhere. You'd think people would be talking about this shit, but that's because it's not actually a visual novel. I mean, it kind of is if you take those words literally to be a story with visuals. It's a fucking picture book. That's pretty much what it is. The reason why no one is talking about a Spice&Wolf visual novel is because that's not what this is. What this is the short story Wolf and the Gold Wheat Ears. Or at least that's the translation of the name I found for this. It was released in between Season 1 and 2 of the anime and actually contains an OVA of Episode 0 of Season 2. But here's some shit. Wolf and the Gold Wheat Ears has no translation. I haven't even found a fan translation for this shit, so I can't read it without machine translating it beforehand. Which I did. Because of this, I can't 100% say that I know what's happening in the story, but I'm pretty sure of what goes down. This story takes place from Holo's perspective, which is nice to see since you spend the majority of the time from Lawrence's point of view, so this is a breath of fresh air. I can't tell which, but it's either Holo reminiscing or having a dream of her time watching over the wheat fields of Pazlo Village. It's one or the other, but I don't think the specifics of that change much of anything. The story talks about her watching over the harvest every year and even occasionally making appearances to some of the villagers. But let's be real, the real appeal of this book is the art in it. Every page features Ju Ayakuta's beautiful illustrations printed on paper thicker than Holo, which actually isn't a high bar. She's pretty tiny. The paper's thick. Shit's nice. High quality art on high quality paper. And Ju Ayakuta's art in this book is so warm feeling. Golden fall tones are the primary aesthetic of this. Most of the illustrations are of Holo, of course. Some of them being nude. But of course it is. Cute girls are marketable after all. The Obi hugging this hardback caught my eye because when I looked at the part that folded over the back cover, I saw something being advertised. Wait a minute. Does that say DS? Real shit? Wait a minute. Love and Pedaling Simulation? Some people aren't even aware that there's a Spice&Wolf game, or that there's multiple games, or that the first Spice&Wolf game released in June 2008 for the Nintendo DS. Honestly fair. That shit never came out in English and was only made available via an English patch in 2019. Spice&Wolf My Year with Holo starts off with me camping out in the woods. That's right, me. That's who you play as. No Lawrence in sight. Definitely not. That sure as shit just isn't his design. And me gets into a contract with a client which says to take them home, and if me can do it within a year, he gets to keep the cart that they will use to travel in. This client is Holo. I'm sure you're already noticing some major differences here, and that's because this game acts as an alternate universe to the Spice&Wolf story. One where Lawrence doesn't really exist, where Holo didn't escape from Pazlo, and where the two main characters meet due to a pen-on-paper contract to begin with. And in this alternate universe, Holo is the only carryover. No Nora, no Eve, no Elsa, Nothing. Instead, in place is a new cast of nobodies that'll never show up again ever, so don't grow attached to them whatsoever. So with a fresh new cart and Holo riding shotgun, it's time to actually get into the gameplay. The best way to describe it is how it's described in the Wolf and Gold Wheat Ears advertisement through the Google Translate filter. This is a love and peddling simulation game. What are the two key components of Spice&Wolf as a series? Well, that'd be romance and fucking business. So it only makes sense that a Spice&Wolf game would focus on these two aspects. Here's the core gameplay loop. The first step is to examine the map. The map contains all the villages and towns that you've been to or have heard about on your journey and all the connections and routes to get to and from these locations. Once you've got a location in mind that you want to go to, you click on it and begin carting off to it. The way you traverse in this game reminds me a lot of the world map in Atelier Aisha, where you also pick a location, and as you run to it, the calendar ticks forward in time. Except that in my year with Holo, there is no real indication how many days it's going to take to travel. It'd be nice to have that information. Once you reach your destination, you've got some options. On this screen, you can click the Holo portrait and it'll react depending on where you click and on your intimacy level with Holo. I'll get to that bit in a minute, but you can also go to the tavern and ask about some rumors. This is where you'll learn about other towns you haven't been to yet, or if any products is shooting up in price or going on sale in nearby towns. Fuck the tavern. The game tells you to go to the tavern in every town and to ask about shit, and after the beginning stages of the game it starts becoming a coin toss of whether or not this fuck is going to be like, nah, haven't heard shit. And you need to go to the tavern to learn about locations, so every time you step into a town, you've gotta waste your time talking to them, only be told, go fuck yourself. And this is because there's no icon or indication that the tavern actually has any new information. Nothing. The only way to find out is to go there. And yeah, a single tavern visit isn't going to waste that much time, but over the course of hours while playing this game, that shit adds up fast. When you're done at the tavern, you can hit up the marketplace and do two things here. You buy shit, or if you got shit already, you can sell it here. When buying, you can only hold so many things in your cart, which is a good thing that you can upgrade how many slots you've got. The number on the product is its current value, which does fluctuate. If the arrow is pointing to the right, then the price is steady and a standard market value. If it's pointing up, the price is higher than usual, and if pointing down, then it's on sale. The number on the product in your cart is how much you bought it for, so keep that in mind. This game is a rather simple but still engaging business game. Its focus is on paying attention to where products are cheap and where they sell for a lot and creating your own trade route. That's a cool and also fun way to translate the business half of Spice&Wolf into a game format. Though I will say that this game does have a major flaw once you realize it. The optimal way to play is to always sell your product the next town over. Straight up, you'd be losing money by selling your stuff 3 towns over rather than just the next town, because very rarely is there actually that big a difference in sale price. And it's better to just sell things as fast as possible, because then you're able to flip way more products as well as gain merchant experience way quicker, which will allow you to flip more expensive products. The way this game works has a good base to it, but as it is, it lacks any real strategy. But the peddling is only part of the game. The biggest part we still haven't gotten to is the romance. While traveling, there will be various events with Holo. All these boil down to is pick the right option or pay up and be Holo's sugar daddy and buy your food. Pick right and you get intimacy points with Holo. That's pretty much all that part boils down to. Though it is cool that all the Holo parts are fully voice acted in a DS game. You don't often get that in DS games. And after a year, or if you're able to take Holo home, does the game end, and your ending is dependent on a couple of factors. Did you take her home? What is your merchant level? And what is your intimacy level? The game isn't actually that long. It took me about 7 hours while reading everything, which there's a lot to read. So I imagine that a New Game Plus wouldn't take that long, which this game is designed with New Game Plus in mind. You will not get the best ending on your first playthrough, and that is because your merchant level will be too low, because all the good shit is locked out of reach until you get more experience. So only a New Game Plus will the good shit be in reach when you first reach towns. But I got a pretty good ending on my first run, so I'm satisfied at leaving it there. I'd rather just move on to the sequel, honestly. The year after my year with Holo saw the release of Spice&Wolf: The Wind That Spans the Sea in September 2009. This sequel to My Year with Holo is actually not a direct follow-up to the prior game, and despite looking and playing very similar, features a lot of improvements and changes from it. When you hit start, you're hit with the first noticeable difference, that being the voice of Jun Fukuyama, the voice of Lawrence. He's back! Our boy is back! Being able to actually hear Lawrence, who remains being fully voiced in this game, made me realize how empty My Year with Holo sounded. In the prior game, all you heard was Holo, but Spice&Wolf isn't just a Holo show. It's not just Lawrence who is back. This game kinda assumes you watch the anime, as the cast here features the key players who showed up in the show. You've got Nora, you've got Eve, you got that cuck that fortunately only shows up like twice, which is still twice too many, and you got Dion. And that's all there is to the returning cast. Elsa, yet again, gets fucked. You've also got a game-exclusive character, Luca, who finds herself in the center of this game's story. To keep it simple, Lawrence finds himself a sick deal that requires him to cross the sea, and he's got a year to do so. Except he finds himself fucked over when apparently the church is in control of who gets to travel on boats, of which Lawrence can't because Holo would be discovered immediately. And this has them crossing paths with the young girl Luca, whose father was a great ferryman of a small town and also presumed fucking dead. Except he might not be. And if found, he would be able to fix the situation of the church controlling travel. The core story is very reminiscent of the structure of one of the novels. You travel to a new location and come across a new cast of characters who have some issues that need to be resolved, and Lawrence and Holo find themselves in the center of it, as well as trying to use business to resolve it in some way. Now you've got a goal and a time limit. Cross the water within a year. The main gameplay loop is very similar to the prior games and might as well just look the fucking same at a glance. But the Wind That Spans the Sea features some quality of life improvements, as well as some changes to the gameplay that vastly improves upon the previous entry. The first changes that got me rock hard over was the quality of life improvements. When you first entered a town, it was impossible to know if there was a need to enter the tavern to gain mandatory information to get to a new location, so you ended up wasting fucking time entering the taverns each and every fucking time. That was some bullshit, but no more. Now whenever there's an event at a location in town, this will be represented with an exclamation mark on the respective icon. This includes whenever the tavern has new information. Fuck yes. You now know exactly when you need to click on that icon. Also, traveling to another location now has the added benefit of knowing how long to take to reach it. When you click on a town, you'll be shown that it'll take 3, 4, or 5 days to reach it. This is hella nice when trying to create a route. Say location is having a massive price drop and you have only a few days to reach it. Now you'll know exactly how long it'll take to get to it and whether it is a waste to travel to it. You're no longer walking in the dark. Also, while I stuck to using the touchscreen because it was just easier to work with, this game is now a lot more button friendly. It's a bit clunkier at points, but you could theoretically play this without the use of a touchscreen. Button prompts will actually be on screen when relevant, as well as being able to use buttons to open and navigate the menus. Again, I just found it easier to utilize the touchscreen, but the sentiment is nice. But it's not just quality of life improvements featured in this game, but there's also changes to how the trade gameplay functions that fundamentally changes how you approach the gameplay. When going through the tutorial, the game will outright tell you, hey, it'd be fucking stupid to sell your shit the next town immediately over, so don't, dumbass. And they're right, don't do that shit. If you do try to do that, you will sell at a big fucking loss. You have to go at least 2 towns over if you want to start thinking about selling. Another major change is the size of items in your cart. In My Year with Holo, everything was a single standard size unit, 1 square. In Wind That Spans the Sea, some items will be larger than that, requiring you to attaché case your cart to optimize what you can take with you. These 2 changes alone adds way more depth and forces you to engage with the gameplay loop in a different way. Now you actually have to make a trade route. In the previous game, it really didn't matter what you did as long as you bought and sold fast. In this game, what you bring and where you take it actually fucking matters way more. You can't just load up on the highest priced option. It might not fit. And if you do buy that, you might not be able to pick anything up in the next town since you can't sell shit there and you might not have the space. It forces you to think about your destination and a trade, potentially 5 or 6 towns away rather than just the next. This also means that the amount of trades is, on average, less in one playthrough in Wind That Spans the Sea than in My Year with Holo. With less on average trades means you need to really consider which products will yield the most profit and where, also requiring you to take into consideration the popular item mechanic more than not at all. This game, way more than the previous, actually realizes the main goal of creating your own trade route, and executes it way better. At a certain point fairly early on in the game, you'll be given a choice on who you want to travel with. You'll of course be given the option to continue traveling alone with Holo. In addition, you have the choice to also include Nora, Eve, or Luca on your journey as well for the rest of the game. You also can't switch them out, so this choice is permanent. This means that if you pick another character, you gain the potential of raising the intimacy level with them and getting a different ending. I only did 2 playthroughs of this game. First one, I decided to continue with just Holo. The second playthrough, I chose Nora. The only real change is different additional events being thrown into the event pool to potentially raise up their affection and get their ending. Nora's was fucking hilarious to me. At the end of the game, Lawrence just ditches Holo and chooses to live the rest of his life with Nora, opening a shop where they sell the clothes she makes. You can feel Holo seething off in the distance at this shit. All it took was an additional year of development after my year with Holo to result in a game that completely invalidates the prior in nearly every way. I was surprised how, with some additional tweaking to the gameplay and adding some quality of life improvements, just how much more of an enjoyable experience The Wind That Spans the Sea was. It should say a lot that I even did a second playthrough of the game. I didn't do that shit with my year with Holo. These games are of course fan-passioned in English, but if you did actually want to play it physically on the DS, maybe because you're learning Japanese and decided to play it that way, then hey, good news. DS games are region free as fuck. Works on 3DS too, so that's pretty sick. And yeah, of course I own the games physically. The special editions too. The first box, the smaller of the two, is the special edition of the first game. It's about the size of a DS game box, so if you can store away a DS game, then you can store away a DS game with some extra cake to it. Inside you got the game, of course. I will say that the manual is in full color, which is nice to see, but what isn't is that the paper quality just feels cheaper. I think what it is the cover using the same paper as the rest of it, so it just doesn't feel as good as other game manuals. You also get two additional things in this. The first is a sound selection CD with 5 versions of the same song. I mean, it's a nice song, but like, would have been nice if it was a full-on soundtrack of the game. Like, you're already putting a CD in this. Why they holding back on the extra fucking CD space? Come on, man. The CD packaging is beautiful though. It's a lovely floral pattern, and I am a slut for floral shit. The insert has the lyrics of the song, and when I unfolded it to see this shit of Holo with the Marry Me bottom text, I busted out laughing. That shit is goofy. The last thing you get in this is a replica of Holo's wheat pouch that she wears. It is actually big enough to wear as a necklace. And inside the pouch is one of those sound boxes where you press the button and it says shit. I have no idea how many voice clips of Holo is on this bitch, but it's more than you think and I haven't bothered counting. Now, the special edition for Wind That Spans the Sea is a lot fucking bigger. Whereas you could find any old surface to place the first games down, this box is a bitch to store. It's long as fuck and I genuinely don't have a good place to put it, and I'm not happy with where I keep it, but it has to do. Inside this box, from left to right, you've got the CD that this comes with, which is an actual full soundtrack. They did it for this, why couldn't they have done it for the previous CD? Fuck if I know. Unfortunately, no goofy insert, it's played straight with just the lyrics. Up next is also the game. When I first picked up the game, I looked at the bottom right corner and learned that apparently DS games have NTR codes attached to them. Fitting, given the alternate endings of this game. Same paper quality with the manual, oh well. And on the right is a pouch to hug your DS in. I gave my DS to a friend, so all I've got is my 3DS, which still fits. It's cute and all, but I personally wouldn't use this as a 3DS carrying pouch, even if it were a non-collectible generic and not a Holo-themed one. For one, with the material it's made out of, it feels like it would get really dirty, really fast, and given its material and the way it's made, it's also not waterproof. You kind of want that in a handheld carrying case. Also, it feels tight around the 3DS, which I get that this is made for the DS Lite, but I should still mention that. And that just leaves the last thing in this big fucking box, the poster. This is why this is as big as it is. This shit is a massive fucker that on one side has a 1:1 scale Holo printed onto it. Like, actually to scale. It's really fucking long, and I doubt I'd be able to fit it all into frame. If I had less shame, I'd find a frame for this. I approve of Holo. What I don't approve of is that the other side has a printing of Luca. You know, the literal child. If you walk into someone's house and they got this shit on full display, that shit is mad suspect, especially since it isn't Holo being the one on display. That's another red flag on top of it all. The last stuff I'm going to cover are the remaining Spice&Wolf games. And don't forget about Dengeki Bunko fighting Climax. This is a Spice&Wolf game too. No really, Holo's in here somewhere. Where the fuck is she? Who are these bitches? Yo! See look, there she is, in Holo. Wait, why is this whole page Kino? So this shit is a fighting game, and while Holo isn't one of them playable characters, she shows up as one of the many support characters representing her respective series, Spice&Wolf. In case you're confused why she's here, it's because this game is a crossover between a bunch of light novels published under Dengeki Bunko, Spice&Wolf being one of them. So all the supports universally only have 2 actions each, Holo having an offensive and a support action. To make things easier to say, the support button is labeled as S, so instead of saying support button, I'm just going to shorthand it to S. So if you're holding neutral or down and press S, Holo will materialize into existence and give your opponent a big ol' swipe. It does some decent damage, has good range, and if you're not shit like me, could be used to jump in and railing your opponent's ass. It'd be busted if you could freely use this, which is why support skills exist on a cooldown, but her swipe is relatively quick on the cooldown. If you instead hold forward or back and press S, you get Holo's support action. She jumps in and creates a small field of wheat. When she actually jumps in, that jump can deal some damage, but not much. What this action is actually good for is that when you stand in the field of wheat, you recover some health as well as build meter, so that's cool. That's pretty much the extent of Holo's existence in this game. She's not a playable character, so there isn't much here to begin with. I guess you could also see Holo in other color palettes if that's interesting. Of the alternate colors, I like 6 the most because I've got a problem and redheads are the only solution. Then there really wasn't a Spice&Wolf game for years. Then June 2019 came with it, the release of a new Spice&Wolf game, Spice&WolfVR. Game? Is this even a fucking game? I think it is. It's more accurate to call Spice&WolfVR an interactive anime episode. Let's actually back this up a bit because it's hard to understand why this shit even exists without rewinding space-time 8 years and going back to 2011. In that year, the visual novel World and Economica came out, made by Spicy Tales. Spicy Tales being the independent game studio supervised by Isuna Hasekura. Okay, game studio established, and over the next couple of years, they work on that trilogy of visual novels, then work on getting it localized and thrown on Steam. Cool, with that done, it's time to work on a new project, and at this point, virtual reality headsets are becoming more accessible to consumers, so Spicy Tale then pivots to making a visual novel style game in VR. Make it more like you're watching an anime in VR. And with the release of Project Lux is where the concept of a VR anime is made. From here, Spicy Tales has the tech and some experience under their belt to move on to making another VR anime, this time with Isuna Hasekura's most well-known IP, Spice&Wolf. Spice&Wolf VR is for all intents and purposes a full-on Spice&Wolf OVA in VR form. They're not fucking around when they call it a VR animation. The main verb for this shit is watch. When you press start on the main menu, you find yourself in a rundown mill and see both Lawrence and Holo enter to dodge the rain. This is where you absorb Lawrence, becoming one with him and have claimed his eyes. And this is the rest of the experience. You're sitting there, through Lawrence's perspective, as you watch a conversation between him and Holo for 23 minutes. And it is 23 minutes. That shit's the standard length of an anime episode. So where does the interactive part come in? Well, you've got a big fucking give-up machine strapped to your head, and the game will track it. When you move in the game? What the fuck do I even call this? Is this a game or an animation? Fuck it, I'm sticking with game. Anyway, this means that, if you wanted, you're able to move around within the given limits and get a slightly different perspective. The game doesn't actually like when you do this, though. As much as it is possible to stand up or lean forward, the game doesn't actually adjust to accommodate that. If you move away from where Holo is meant to look, she doesn't move her head to maintain eye contact. And when you shove your face into hers, the game really doesn't like that shit. If you get close, the frame rate drops for some reason. And if you get close enough to clip into her head, you are either welcome with a black screen, or you can finally prove that Holo truly is head empty. And speaking of clipping into the model, fuck man, the subtitles really need extra work. The subtitles exist in 3D space and can actually move when you move your head. What this means most of the time is that it can get very inconvenient to read, and you might even have to fight the game to get it to work. It will, on occasion, block Holo, making it harder to see what's happening, or clip into Holo, making it a bitch to read what's happening. It can be some annoying shit to deal with when it happens. But even after you hit credits, this goes from being an interactive anime and now the actual game part unlocks. Being in VR, you don't have just a headset, but the give up machine additionally has controllers for both of your hands. Perfect for petting Holo with. Fuck, I feel pathetic playing this. No really, I'm fucking serious. This game allows you to pet Holo, and this is why I've been calling VR the give up machine. Abandon the fuck out of real life, jack into VR, jack an IV into your veins, and jack off to your virtual waifus. That's what this shit is really made for. This mode has a checklist of ways to interact with Holo. You can command your woman to do a thing. You can pet your woman, but you cannot slap a bitch. This game may have that hint of misogyny, but this game doesn't support domestic violence. Now, supposedly, this game supports being able to play this without VR. At least that's what the Steam page says. There's something wrong here, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Oh yeah, the camera's going fucking apeshit. I think the Steam page lied to me. I have no fucking clue why this is happening, but Lawrence's neck is just having a fucking ball over here. The next year, in December 2020, a sequel came out called Spice&WolfVR 2. I can't go too much into detail here or show too much as it takes place after volume 17 of the books and therefore carries hella spoilers, but it's pretty much more the same. Rather than an interactive play with your dog minigame, this one features a bit where the characters are watching the anime and are reminiscing over the past. You can feed Holo berries here too. I think these are cool experiences, but I would also say that this shit can be a waste of fucking money too. The ideal way to play through these two games are to, first and foremost, have a VR set, and honestly, that shit just isn't worth it. It's not at all that it's chalked up to be. And even if you can manage to play without Lawrence's neck doing somersaults, do you really want to spend 25 bucks on this shit? That's fucking right, 25 fucking dollars each. I very much recommend that if you still want to play through these for whatever reason, to wait for a sale, because these two games genuinely are not worth the asking price. It really isn't. My goal for this was to try to make a definitive video. One on everything Spice and Wolf that I could reasonably get my hands on within my means and the money I got. Which, despite me getting a ton of shit that end up costing a lot of money, no, I'm not going to add up everything because I don't want to cry looking at the number. I'm far from having a complete collection. And honestly, don't really want that either. Do I really need every mug? Or keychain? Or poster? No, not really. Even if it was within my means to get them, and even if I am a collector of sorts, I don't collect just because it has a brand or IP I like. But anyway, with this video I tried to go through every piece of Spice&Wolf media there is, right up until the 2024 anime. This series has been going on since 2006. That's 18 years that this series has been going for, and 18 years of releases that most people are probably blind to. That's a lot to cover, but happy 18th, Spice and Wolf. Now you can vote! I for sure intend to watch the 2024 anime. I intend to keep reading the books as they come out, and whatever else may follow the Spice and Wolf series, I'll be there to check it out.